Welcome to Top Notch TV, a paragon of excellence. Today with you is Teacher Rispa, a teacher from PCA Kikuyu High School, a teacher of English and Literature, an examiner, as well as an author. Today I have the pleasure of having Teacher Emis Njabani, a teacher from Alliance Girls High School. She's an examiner as well as an author, a teacher of English and Literature as well. Today we shall be looking at a new book. We shall be delving into the understanding of the Samaritan, a book by John Lara. Thank you for joining us. First of all, you're going to look at the background information into understanding the book, The Samaritan. When you're understanding The Samaritan, first of all, maybe you start by looking at the cover. When I'll be looking at the cover, first of all, I'll be looking at the picture that is depicted on the cover. On the cover, I can see what looks like the sunset. And by interpretation, you can see that the sunset is symbolic of the end of an era. There's an era that is ending, the era of corruption by the municipal officials. And now we want to get into a new era brought about by the invention of the Samaritan. Still on the cover, I can see what looks like a body of water. The body of water maybe by interpretation, but the cover we can interpret it in different ways. The body of water can be symbolic of where the book is coming from. Because in terms of setting, we are learning that the book is from one among the countries in the Caribbean. A number of times, it has been mentioned, the word Caribbean has been mentioned several times within the text. Still on the introduction to the text, we are going to look at the author. The author is someone by the name John Lara. Nothing much is known about the author, John Lara, therefore we'll just leave it at that. Then about the title, The Samaritan. The Samaritan is with reference to a certain application that has been invented by two students. And this application is for the purpose of whistleblowing on the evils that are happening in the fictional state of Maracas. I've mentioned something about the setting, but then now in depth about the setting. The setting is in the Caribbean. As you are reading the book, we are looking at a number of times that the word Caribbean has been mentioned, and then particularly in a fictional state of Maracas, a municipality. In terms of time, setting in terms of time, we are going to say that the book has been set in our contemporary society. We are looking at the kind of corruption, the corruption that has marred the municipality. Therefore, in terms of time, we can talk about the setting is within our contemporary society. After this introduction, I will welcome my colleague to speak about Act 1. In the introduction, we're about to go into the plot analysis. Welcome, Teacher Emis.
Thank you. Hello, viewers. Welcome. So I'm going to look at the plot analysis, and we're going to start with Act 1. Just let you know, every act has 3 scenes. So this session, we are going to look at the first 2 scenes of Act 1. So I look at the events that are taking place in the at the beginning of the story, and most importantly, the first act. So every act, we have been given generally the setting of the play, but every act has its specific setting. And I will learn us to remind you, when we look at the setting, we look at the place and time where the when and where the events in the story are taking place. So Act 1, Scene 1, the events or the setting is in the school, Sagrada Secondary School. It's around 10 a.m. and the students are gathered in the school hall, and because they're actually there for the end of year closing assembly. So we are told that during that closing assembly, there is a special ceremony that is supposed to take place, and the ceremony is the launching of the winning innovation in the secondary school national innovation conference. So the mayor of the municipality, Maracas municipality, Honorable Mayor Mosi, is expected to come and officially launch the Samaritan app, the innovation that is by 2 students of Sagrada Secondary School, that is Alvita and Montano. So at the beginning, we see the students seated and the teachers, and the deputy principal Kamona is telling them that they're expecting the guests to come in anytime. So His Honorable Mayor Mosi comes together with other members or other leaders of the municipality, and he also is also accompanied by some local board members of the school, as well as the school principal, Miss Narine. So they come, and Kamona, the deputy principal, welcomes the principal to also introduce the guests of honor and welcome them to the event. So when Miss Narine speaks, she actually introduces the two students, Alvita and Montana, and mentions about their innovation and how good it is, and the fact that it won during the national competition, and also the teacher who midwifed the whole innovation and assisted the students in coming up with the Samaritan. So she invites teacher Nicole, the teacher who is in charge of ethics and innovation in Sagrada Secondary School, to come and see more, or actually introduce the innovation for the mayor and the other guests to understand what the innovation was about, to understand more what the innovation was about. So Nicole says that to make them understand better, they are going to have a skit about what the Samaritan app is about. And she welcomes the two innovators, the two students, Montano and Alvita. So in the skit, the two students see into the future. Montano is the first person to say that he could see into the future, 50 years into the future, and the things that he saw were not so good things. It wasn't a promising future according to his vision, because first of all, he talked about joblessness. He says that in his future, he could see Alvita as a cobbler, mending shoes by the streets, yet he was educated. And Alvita is wondering, with all my education, I'm just a cobbler. So Alvita, Montano tells her that you are actually lucky to have the cobbler job. So many people, graduates, were just loitering the streets with no jobs to do. That is one thing that he saw in the future. The second thing that he mentions is environmental degradation or environmental pollution. He says that while mending the shoes, Alvita had a running nose that didn't stop. His nose was always running, and he says that the reason as to why Alvita's nose was always running is because of the stench in the city. That the city was smelling so bad because there was no enough water to clean, and so the stench used to make people sick. The next thing he saw is diseases. People were sick. Alvita had a running nose that did not stop. People did not have money for medication, and people were sick. Another thing he saw is lack of basic needs like water and food. Montano explains and says that there was no water to clean the city, and as a result, there was that stench. He also says that there was no food, and the food was brought as a result of another problem, which is climate change. So there was no food, and people ended up eating rodents. Now, the rodents were not even enough to sustain the people. So they ended up eating plastics and other synthetic materials that he could actually not explain or make out what they were. So people did not have food as a result of climate change. And he says climate change is because there was no rain. It only rained once per year, and if it rained, it only rained for 10 minutes. 10 minutes once per year. That was not enough rains to support animal and plant life. He also talked about life expectancy, that it had really gone down all the way to 30 or 40 years. People did not live past 40 years. It says that now people are living to 70 and 80, but in the next 50 years from now, people will not go past 40 years. Their life expectancy is going to come down. He also talked about the crime rate in the country or in their municipality, that people were killing each other. People were slaughtering each other like chicken. And the law enforcers were doing nothing about it because according to them, they wanted to have their palms greased for them to follow the law. That leads to the last evil that is corruption, that the leaders and the law enforcers had to have their palms greased for them to do the right thing. So when Montano is finished, Alvita says that she also had traveled into the future. But the things that she saw were totally the opposite of what Montano had seen. So according to Alvita, there was, first of all, technological advancement. She says that there were robots that had been created to replace the professionals. Instead of having judges who are corrupt in courts, they would have robots who are not discriminating against anyone, robots that were not corrupt, so justice was served fairly. She also says that there are robots that replaced even accountants, police officers who are corrupt. So there was technological advancement in the next 50 years, according to Alvita's innovation. But she still says that does not mean that people had nothing to do. They were out there, out in the universe, venturing into other innovations, but things were so good. She also mentions that life expectancy had really gone up and that people would stay for around 700 years because they had developed some medicine that used to regenerate the cells in your body and make you remain beautiful and young for the rest of your life. So people never used to grow old. People never used to fall sick, and they would live for as long as 700 years. And then the last thing that she saw was clean air. They had come up with means of cleaning the emissions from carbon emissions from the air that were as a result or that were causing the climate change that Montano talked about. And now the air was fresh, there was no stench. Also, the rains were frequent, so they were able to support human and animal life. So, but in the skit, remember also Teacher Nicole is there. So Teacher Nicole says that Alvita is actually fantasizing a lot. Such things cannot happen. And Alvita assures them that if the municipality uses the public resources for what they were meant for, then they are going to have such a wonderful future where there are no diseases, where there is no joblessness, where people are not, where people have enough food and they're not feeding on plastics and rodents. So it says if only public resources were located fairly and they were used for the purposes they were meant for, then they're going to have a better future for the municipality. So Teacher Nicole asks her, then how are we going to achieve that? And that is now when, in their skit, they introduced the Samaritan. They say that the two of them came up with an application, a mobile application that will ensure that the Maracas municipality achieves some of those things that Alvita saw in her future. So they take time to explain the Samaritan, and just like my colleague Teacher Lispa said when explaining the title of the book, that the Samaritan, the name of the Samaritan is a biblical allusion. It's from the biblical story about the Good Samaritan. We'll look at that in depth later on in our another session. So so now Mia Mosi is interested. It feels like now this arouses interest in him. So he's asking Alvita questions that who are these good people that are going to share information in this the Samaritan. So Alvita had first taken time to explain how the Samaritan will work. That the Samaritan is a platform that allows members of the public to share photos, text, videos, any information that they gather concerning the misuse of resources, corruption, any ill that they come across in the municipality. And so you can see from that, it touches mostly on the leaders. That is why it arose Mayor Mosi's interest. So she also goes ahead to say that they'll have pigeonholes for every department in the government, such that if you have a concern in the Ministry of Planning, then you channel your concerns to that pigeonhole. If your concern is in the Ministry of Education, you channel the concern to the concerned department. They also say that they had actually they did a trial on the Ministry of Environment. Yes, the Minister of Environment, and they saw that it was a success. So that does not sit so well with the mayor, because it feels like now he's being his life is going to, or whatever that he does as the mayor of the municipality is going to be exposed. It's like now he's going to be stripped naked and people can see the kind of a leader that he is. That is why he says, first of all, he pretends and says that he is going to support any innovation that comes up in the municipality. But after the students and other teachers have been released from the hall, then now he voices his true intention. He says that he cannot allow the Samaritan to be launched, and he was not going to launch it until time that he feels was the right time for him to do so. He says that the app will make people spread rumors and lies about the leaders, things that they have no substantial evidence about. So he says it's not a good thing. So the principal and Nicole inform him that the innovation has already been approved by the Ministry of Education, and the president is scheduled to launch it the beginning of the following year. Remember, during this setting, we said it's end of the school year. So the following year, the president is scheduled to launch the application. So the mayor says that Nicole should write letters and express dissatisfaction with the innovation. Say that the innovation had a few maybe miscalculations or errors here and there, and so it should not be launched. Of course, Nicole and the school administration are against that because they don't understand why such a good thing should be abolished or should be killed at the initial stage instead of them developing and cultivating it to grow. So mayor says that he's now giving his orders as the mayor of Maracas municipality, and that Nicole should go and write that letter to the Ministry of Education. So Nicole leaves, and after her departure, we learn from the principal and Piro, who is the chair of the board, that Nicole is most likely not going to do what the mayor commanded her to do, because we are told that she does what she believes is always right. So that's where our first scene of Act 1 ends our learners. And so my colleague, Teacher Rispa, is going to take us through the events that are in the second scene of Act 1.
Thank you for your in-depth analysis. She has done a good job. We are going further into the analysis of the plot, and you're now getting into Act 1, Scene 2. Act 1, Scene 2 takes place at the municipality, particularly in the mayor's boardroom. The mayor, as my colleague was ending Act 1, Scene 1, we are learning that the mayor is becoming apprehensive about the application, and he has given an order that they should not continue the activities of the Samaritan. Now, what is happening at this mayor's boardroom? The mayor has convened a meeting. Who is in attendance in that meeting? We are looking at the mayor has invited a number of officials within the municipality. One among them, I'll just mention there, people who attended the meeting. One among them, we are seeing the CEO of the municipality, someone by the name of Mr. Harvester. Another person who was in attendance, we have a judge by the name of Justice Ian Jaden. Another person in attendance is Secretary to Health, someone by the name of Ted. Another person in attendance is Secretary to the Ministry of Planning. We are looking at someone by the name of Seymour. Others include Mr. Mosi himself. Another one is Mr. Ramdae. Ramdae is the Assistant Mayor. And finally, we have the IG, the Inspector General of the Police. We have someone by the name of Inspector Bembe. In total, we are having 7 people attending that meeting. What do these people have in common? Why have they been selected, the selected few, to come in to the meeting? What these people have in common is that they have some skeletons in their closet. There are people who have been accused of a number of corrupt deals, and with the Samaritan app in place, they are being exposed. Now these people know that they have a common enemy by the name of the Samaritan. They want to join forces. They want to share ideas on how do they stop this application from taking effect and exposing them. As my colleague had put it earlier, they are being stripped naked in front of people. And as we are looking at this, meeting, we see that the mayor has come. He has 3 phones. And at the same time, he has 4 different newspapers. And his interest in asking the 4 different newspapers be procured, he wants to prove to the people in attendance that the headlines are portraying them in the negative light. What is particular in these headlines that are being carried is the ills that are being propagated by the 7 people in attendance. People are saying things about them. Among the examples, maybe I can talk about, they are being accused of something you're calling supplying air. And the people pointed out, particularly for supplying air, we are looking at Secretary Ted, the one who is in charge of health, and the other one who is in charge of planning, Secretary Seymour. They're the ones who have been put in the limelight for supplying air. Exactly, what is supplying air? When they're talking about supplying air, they're talking about the municipal is paying a lot of money for services not rendered. You have a friend who has a company, you put it in such a way that your friend is providing a certain service, but then no service is provided, but then the money is being paid. That is what they are being accused of, supplying air. Another accusation that comes their way, we can also give another example. These people all are guilty of something. That is why they are joining the forces. They are talking about another person by the name of Inspector Bembe. Inspector Bembe is also in attendance. And he is being accused of having acquired a certain golf club by the name of Mandingo.
Yes, Mandingo.
Mandingo Golf Club. And he's even apprehensive. He's wondering, how did they come across such information? In the end, they conclude it must have been someone close to him. Yeah. Betrayal always comes from someone who is close to you. It must have been a friend who gave the information to the media. When you're looking at the Samaritan app, it can be a representation of the media. The media's job is to put people in check. Whenever you're doing something, you have to think twice because you might be put in the limelight for the wrong reason. Other allegations that are being labeled against these people include inflated cost of municipal projects. Let's say a project is supposed to take 3 million, they end up talking about 12 million. That is what you're talking about, inflated cost of municipal projects. Another one is securing tenders through proxies. I want to get my hand on a certain deal. What do? You make sure a company belonging to a friend is the one given that particular tender. Now, the second allegation you're talking about, acquiring tenders through proxies. Another one is drug trafficking. And later on, you shall see that the drug trafficking is particularly labeled on someone by the name of Seymour. Another one is the grabbing of public land. Now we are looking at these are the leaders. Yet the leaders are the ones who do not have the best interest of the people. They're the ones who are propagating all these types of corruption. Another one now, these people need to find a way of protecting themselves. What do they come up with? Their idea is that they need to ban the Samaritan. The idea is that they need to ban the Samaritan application. But what excuse are they going to use so that they ban the application? They're talking about this application is being used by other spy applications to acquire personal information. Personal information such as other people's bank accounts. Another allegation, and all these are false allegations that will make this application of the Samaritan to be withdrawn. They also accuse it of things such as allegations such as cyberbullying. They're talking apart from the Samaritan being used by other spy applications. They're talking about it as an avenue that advances cyberbullying. At the same time, they accuse it of spreading things such as pornography that is bad for the youth. In the end, they are advocating for hacking that application. They make it function in the wrong way so that it might be rendered useless. We are also looking at, still on Act 1, Scene 2, these people have already seen that they have a common enemy. But then, as they're trying to find a way forward, there is a fallout. The fallout comes from, first of all, Justice Jaden, who feels that his ills have not been highlighted in the limelight. He feels that all that he has done is not under public scrutiny. Mm-hmm. It has not yet been uncovered. That is what he thinks. Now he's blaming these other people and he says, you people, you have not been discreet enough. And he wants to now wash his hands out of this deal and he now wants to excuse himself. He does not want to be a party to this. They're talking about a fallout. Other people still have other ideas. We are looking at someone like Ramdai. Ramdai, out of his ignorance, plans on getting the information out of the application. He says, why don't you get rid of that information from the internet? And how can we access that internet? Now you see, that is some kind of ignorance that maybe a person of his age is not very sure how the internet operates. Another person like Simon is for the idea that they use money. When you're talking about using money, they're talking about bribery. They need to bribe the story away. They bribe people so that the story goes away. But then they're being told people are accessing this information from different corners. Now, when you're going into the bribery way, who exactly are you going to bribe? Now, the last thing they're thinking about is, why don't you get a lot of money from which you can protect ourselves? Mm-hmm. But what is the source of the money? The source of the money, each one of them is being asked to raise some money, but all of them are in a fix when it comes to their financial needs. Some of them are complaining that we don't have that kind of money. Another one is even saying that, someone like Ramdai, he says he is into a lot of loans. He has procured a lot of loans that he is still servicing. Therefore, asking him for that kind of money, the kind of money that they need to pay lawyers and judges, he is not coming into any amount of money anytime soon. Therefore, he is against that idea. Suddenly, they hatch up a plan. Their plan is that they need to get the money from their municipality funds. They need to maybe misappropriate some funds meant for garbage collection. Their municipality is in a state of how can you put it?
Like environmental pollution.
Yes, there's a lot of there's a state of environmental pollution that needs to be made right. Now they want to propose a budget to right this wrong. But then instead of dealing with this environmental pollution that is in existence, what do? They misappropriate the funds into their own pockets. Now when the law comes for them, they're about to face prosecution, they'll be using that kind of money that was meant for righting the wrong in this environmental pollution. This does not augur well with the Mayor Mosi. The buck stops with Mayor Mosi. If there's any budget to be approved, he'll be blamed for it. But these people are pushing his hand, and they're always sure that they'll be having his support. He has been that kind of a person who is not straightforward. Budget is only approved once a year, but then an avenue has been provided, an avenue from which you can have a supplementary budget. Now what Ted and Simon, they want the mayor to push the mayor's hand to do is to approve such a budget. But then we know that the money will be ending up in their pockets. The mayor refuses to do this. At the end of it, as you see them fall out, we even see that Simon is someone who is aggressive. He is almost going for Mayor Mosi physically. He wants to fight him. But then IG Bembe comes between them, therefore they don't get to fight. But at the end of it, they're threatening Mayor Mosi. They're saying, we were responsible for putting you in office. In a similar way, we can end up hounding you out of office. They give him an ultimatum. Either you approve the supplementary budget or we hound you out of office. Over there, we now see the lanes have been drawn. Some people will be against Mayor Mosi. Others will be on the side of Mayor Mosi. That is what you are calling the fallout. And it brings to our end, it brings to an end our Act 1, Scene 2, and that is it for today. It is a goodbye from us. Until next time we meet as we continue with the plot analysis. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, our viewers.